people who can't be here today can watch it back. Obviously, really, we're aiming to make it possible for people to attend in person, because part of the point of this is to be able to get wellbeing leads together so that you can talk to each other and share ideas. But I think it is helpful to be able to provide a recording for people who can't manage to attend the sessions that we're putting on. And we'll definitely give more notice for the next lot in 2 weeks' time, so that if that helps, you know, there's a bit of possibility of planning ahead a little bit more. Okay. Okay, just hopefully shut down. Okay, let's see if this will go back. Hopefully that's back on the screen now. Okay, so our session today is about team unity, and a chance to kind of explore what that means a bit, but also kind of where's your team at with that and what might help. So this slogan you might have seen bandied around, one team, one OUH. I've seen it quite a lot, and I think it's a really important part of what our trust is about and the kind of response to the pandemic. So you might just want to kind of ponder a bit as I talk, you know, what does this actually mean to you? Is it just a slogan? Does it feel like it has a real meaning? And what does that actually mean in practice for your team? You know, what does one team, one OUH actually mean in practice? How does that translate? So I think, you know, what we're talking about in terms of team unity applies both to unity amongst your team, so between the sort of colleagues in your team, and the individuals in it, but also unity with the trust as a whole. So a sense of kind of feeling connected up with this one team, one OUH. And we're going to try and think about both of those things today. So I was listening to the trust briefing the other week, a couple of weeks ago, and I heard Bruno Holthoff say really clearly, we don't distinguish between frontline and back office, explaining why he doesn't really like the use of the term non-clinical staff. And I thought that was really interesting. You know, he was very clear that from the trust point of view, we're all working for healthcare and for the benefit of patients. And that made me think that, you know, this idea of one team, one OUH is a really key part of our response. So unity in your particular team, but also your team feeling connected up with the whole trust. And why is unity important? So why, you know, that might be a very obvious question, but, you know, let's think a bit about why we're covering this. So I think it's worth acknowledging that what we might call kind of tribal cultures between different groups in the trust are really normal, and there's often something helpful about that sense of kind of shared professional identity or the area of specialty that you work in, you know, your ward or your patient group. When that can start to become more problematic is if there's a sense of competition for resources that are scarce, where, you know, there's not enough of something, and then that can lead to a lot of comparisons or kind of jostling about who's working the hardest, who's got the toughest gig, who's kind of the most important, the most needed, and then who also gets the resources that are limited, the, you know, physical space, other resources, you know, who gets paid, who gets the praise and the appreciation. And that sense of kind of competitiveness can really interfere with our ability to deliver effectively for our patients. And I think, you know, really one of the big lessons of the pandemic is how interconnected we are on a global scale, but also in this context within our trust, that each team is really part of a bigger machine. And so I certainly became very aware of how much I'm relying on other teams in the trust to be able to do my job. For example, IM&T, you know, working remotely. You know, might have well become aware of a very close relationship with procurement if you're working on a ward. And actually, none of us can do what we do in isolation. You know, we need that ability to be joined up with the rest of the trust. So unhealthy sense of competition can, partly just makes it unpleasant to kind of, you know, work in that environment. And that actually has an indirect impact on patient care, but it also has a direct impact on patient care. And I think looking at the Civility Saves Lives stuff is really helpful for sort of explaining that link between what happens with relationships in the team and really kind of hard patient outcomes like recovery post-surgery. Okay, So I thought it might help to go into a breakout room and probably spend 10 minutes in the room and then come back and share some ideas all together. I can't see how many of you up there are here at the moment now, so I'm not sure how many rooms there will be, but it's probably helpful to have some smaller groups. So I'd like you to think about these questions. What are the threats to unity within your particular team, so the team that you're working in at the moment, and what seems to help unity? So different teams probably at quite different sort of places with that sense of unity at the moment. So what are the threats at the moment? What seems to help? And also a kind of second question, how unified does your team feel with the whole trust? That sense of one team, one OUH, what does that mean to your team at the moment? Okay. So I will probably screen sharing, and yeah, hopefully you've got those questions. Threats to unity, what helps, and how connected up are your team feeling with the whole trust? Okay, is that all right, Rashad, to set up the breakout room? So
I'll start them now.
10 minutes. So we'll come back at 10:02, but yeah. So probably take a couple of minutes just to get into the rooms. Please bear with us. Hopefully you're all familiar with this now.
I think I might leave.
You need to go, May? Was it Di? Okay. So we've still got a few people here. Is that because they're not yet in rooms, Rashad?
So everyone should be in rooms. There's just one part. So May Di said for that. Oh yeah, I think everyone should be in rooms. It just said for May Di that this person isn't in the meeting, but everyone else seems to be assigned to a room.
Yeah, I think she left the meeting. Not sure if she intended to, but she said she was going to leave. Ulrika, are you still here in the main room? I don't know if you're talking. You're on mute at the moment. Okay, is that because breakout rooms haven't worked for you yet?
On my thing, I can see that Ulrika's under guest account. So I think that usually causes a problem. It won't let me put her into them into a breakout room.
Okay. Oh, that's a shame.
We could have a discussion here. I'm just noticed that the recording is still on. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we're recording the session because obviously it's not going to record what's happening in the breakout rooms.
Sure. I was just wondering whether because Melanie, I think, is on. Melanie and Ulrika, are you both still in the main room with us here?
Yes, I am. I don't know what happened. I sort of left the whole thing at one point, and now I've come back here. So I was supposed to be in 2, and then I just don't know what happened.
So you need to get back into room 2. Are you able to move Melanie into room 2, Rashad?
I will try and ask her to join room 2 again. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if we can't get Ulrika into a room, but if we're recording, then we don't want to do a session just us here.
No, we can do that. I didn't realise that breakout rooms don't work if you're on as a guest. That's a bit frustrating. Mm-hmm. Sorry about that, Ulrika.
Ulrika, if you would like,
I will try and ask her to. I can try and ask her to join room 2 again, Ulrika.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did you want to join a room, Pallavi?
It would be great if I could, if that's possible.
Sure.
And Ulrika, if it doesn't work, then you can always use the chat here with Guin, I think, if you wanted to.
Yeah, so the chat won't be recorded, but it will kind of linger after the session because they won't be able to see it. we've got more people kind of coming back in. I just don't know what's happening. Melanie and Joanna, I don't know if you've got bounced out of the rooms or what's happening.
Hello, yes, I was in room 5 with somebody, then I've lost connection and I can't get back to room 5.
Oh,
So
okay.
I've logged back in.
I'll try ask you to join room 5 again.
Thanks, Rashad. Yeah, I think that is something that can potentially go wrong if people's internet connection isn't stable and they're kind of coming in and out of the meeting, then that messes it up, doesn't it?
Okay, so we've still got 2 people. Yeah.
Melanie, did you get bounced out again?
Don't know what happened, but again, I just can't seem to go into room 2.
Hello, we're back.
Is your internet connection kind of cutting in and out a bit?
I think it might be. Hang on, I've got a.
Sorry about that, Gwen. I think hopefully the rest of them should be in breakout rooms.
Yeah,
Don't
worry, Rashad. It's a bit of a nightmare. It's a nightmare task, isn't it? It doesn't work in a straightforward way. I'm just wondering whether a different platform would be easier, but I don't, not everyone will have access to Zoom via work. So yeah, I think we might be stuck with this. How many people did you put in each room?
I put so there are 3 people in 5 rooms, so that's 15, and then there's a 5 and a 4 in the other 2 rooms.
Yeah,
there's quite a few people.
Great. Hi, Mandy. Have you just joined us? I don't know if you're talking at the moment, Mandy. You're on mute, so I can't hear you at all. If you just joined, welcome. We are in breakout rooms at the moment, which is why nothing's going on. Oh, you need to leave. Okay, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to give it till 11:50, and then we'll come back.
Yeah.
With Teams, if you close the rooms, do people get a minute's warning?
I don't know actually. I had it on Zoom yesterday for the mindfulness thing, and I know we did get the minute warning. I'm not sure actually. I've never been in one on Teams. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Well, doesn't matter. We'll leave it till 11:50. It's weird because Joanna Glennon, it says that she's in breakout room 5, and then also in here. Yeah, who knows? Oh, hi, Sarah. I think Sarah's just joined. Shall I assign Sarah to a breakout room or?
Yeah, Sarah, if you just joined the meeting, welcome. Everyone's in breakout rooms at the moment, so Rashad can add you to one if that's helpful.
Thank you, and sorry for being late.
Don't worry.
So we've got around 25 people currently.
Okay, oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's good news. Yeah, I wasn't sure how many people would be able to join. Okay, I think we'll give it one more minute, and then at 49, if you can call people back, and I'll try and share my screen again while that's happening. Okay, so, yeah, if you can get people to start coming back now. Thanks, Rashad, and I'll try and do the screen share.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Again. So, welcome back. Hopefully everyone's on their way back in. I think we've got up to about 25 people on the call now. So I don't, maybe once everyone's back, if we just have a quick opportunity to share anything particular that you want to say at the moment that came up in the breakout rooms. And apologies if you've experienced breakout room chaos. I think that is kind of what it's often like. I'm not sure that, I think that's just the way with Teams. I'm not sure there's anything we can do about that. Rashad, do you think most people are back now?
Yeah, all the rooms are closed.
Okay.
So everyone should be back.
Great. So anything particular that you want to kind of flag or share at the moment about the discussions you've had? Feel free to unmute and speak.
Hi, I think we said that the huddles and kind of catch up and weekly things have been really helpful. I mean, we've been having three times a week huddles, and they're very different from our kind of business meeting, and it's really a kind of catch up to see if you're okay. Somebody else in our room was talking about having check-ins or mornings, so I think those have been helpful to keep unity.
Brilliant.
And I think all of us the work that we do, we work across the organisation, so we've been quite lucky in terms of working with lots of different teams, so we felt that we are kind of plugged in and unified with the trusts. And I think one thing that I observed was, in terms of threats to unity, is that when you're in an office, you can tell from somebody's body language how they're feeling. and you can't always tell that at a huddle, or it requires you to be kind of contacting people a lot more frequently, and it's sometimes very, very difficult to read the body language unless somebody's reaching out. So I think it's much more difficult to identify if people are struggling, when you're working remotely.
Yeah, really good point. Yeah, great. All right, so we'll continue, and we're going to have another opportunity to discuss this a bit further, but let's continue with some of the kind of presentation bit for now, if that feels okay. I don't know, I can't see anybody, so I don't know if anyone else is clamoring to speak at the moment. Hopefully that's okay to move on for now.
There are no hands up, Guin, so it should be okay.
Great, thank you, Pallavi. So let's think a bit about what creates disunity. So this might be something you've experienced. It's certainly something we have heard about in some teams. It's a really understandable situation when everyone's under stress. So I think sometimes if people feel ignored or dismissed, or that their perspective isn't heard, or that what they're doing isn't appreciated, or what they're going through is not appreciated. Certainly if there's a kind of unequal distribution of good things, whether that is thanks and appreciation, or kind of snacks coming from the charities, or just available space and resources that people need, when there's that kind of sense of competing for those kinds of things. Sometimes you might find that there are people within the team who are kind of grumbling, angry, or you might hear a sense of kind of envy or even cynicism. And a lot of that actually can be signs of that pandemic fatigue and burnout that Rachel and I were talking about last time. But I think it's also worth noting that, as well as kind of anger and irritability being one of the signs of stress and emotional overwhelm, I think an idea about anger that I find helpful personally is that it's quite a kind of obvious, loudly expressed emotion, because really what people, the function of it is to engage support. So sometimes when that's happening, really what people might be needing is to be heard, to be appreciated, to, if they're feeling kind of that their experience is being ignored or dismissed. So that might be a reason why that kind of grumbling or anger, complaining is coming in. I think the other thing that can be going on is if people are feeling really overwhelmed or anxious, then they're often in that kind of, blinkers on, sort of tunnel vision state, where it might just be too much to kind of take in the bigger picture. They can only cope by kind of focusing quite narrowly on themselves or on their own team, and just as a way to manage what's going on. So what might help to create a sense of unity? So kind of, some of it is sort of the flip side, the other side of the coin from what was on the previous slide, but a sense of generosity, people feeling that they're able to give because there's enough to go round. They're not competing for resources or competing for recognition. And similarly, the ability to take other people's perspective. And I think, that really depends on feeling that you've got some generosity, you've got some capacity left to be able to do that more demanding psychological maneuver of understanding someone else's perspective and position. Similarly, a sense of compassion for others, again, being able to draw on our own reserves to do that. I think having a sense of a shared common goal, shared purpose, shared values helps with this. And also a sense that when we're going through a shared experience, and I think alongside that, something that's really important to keep in mind is that everyone's experiences are equally valid, although they're not all going to be exactly the same. Okay, so one thing that might be useful to keep in mind, it's come out a little bit blurry maybe on your screen, these pictures of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, it's very difficult to take a generous perspective towards other people when we're operating from a place of deficiency, and we need any unmet needs that we've got to be met before we've got extra to give to other people. So this is a bit of an overused meme, I think, not being able to pour from an empty cup. But it's very true that it's really difficult for us to find the capacity and the generosity to think about other people's needs when our own are not fully met at that time. So some ideas for responding, particularly if you're encountering disunity in your team, or team members who are not feeling kind of connected up, or if you've got a sense of not being connected up with the wider trust. So we're thinking about encouraging unity both within your own team and also feeling unified with the trust as a whole. So maybe looking at, are there some unmet needs that are driving that sense of division and disunity? And how could you help to make sure that those needs are met? And really important to note the importance of not colluding with any sense of kind of divisiveness. So you're not sort of endorsing that whilst also standing up for your team. So we don't need to dismiss the needs of others in order to stand up for our own team, because it's not a competition. And actually everybody's worthy of having their experience seen and heard. So I think it can be helpful to agree to take the stance that everyone's experience is equally valid, which doesn't mean that everyone's experienced the same thing, clearly. So trying not to do that thing of comparing apples with oranges, because it's just not going to add up. And agreeing not to engage in those sorts of comparisons. And something that I have called lost maths, which is a phrase that I was used in a group that I used to run before my current post, which was for people who'd experienced loss of a baby. And it in that kind of environment, it can be sometimes can happen that people start to compare, who's had the worst loss, who's suffered the most. And that can obviously create a lot of divisiveness and a lot of extra suffering for people. And so that's what we used to call those sorts of comparisons. We agreed that we weren't going to engage in trying to add up who's suffered the most, who's lost the most. It's not possible to reach a logical answer with that kind of comparison in this sort of situation. And trying to do that actually creates a lot more suffering for everybody involved. So I think, it can be helpful to agree that everyone's experience is worthy of being acknowledged and validated without them needing to be compared and contrasted. And that approach, that stance will help everybody, because where that's coming from is a perspective that there's actually enough to go round of what everybody needs, the respect everyone needs, the acknowledgement everyone needs, the validation and the compassion. There's enough of that for everybody to have some. And it's not necessary to compete to kind of reach the top of the hierarchy of your experience being the worst in order to get that. And I think sort of related to that, there's been a lot of concern about PTSD for healthcare staff and negative psychological effects more generally from the very difficult working environment that everyone's been in through the pandemic. So what we know about PTSD from a psychological point of view is we actually can't predict who's going to develop that just from looking at the situation they're in. It's not as simple as that. Actually, there's a whole range of factors that make someone more psychologically vulnerable. And so in our situation in the pandemic at the moment, we can't assume, for example, that those who are on the so-called front line are at more risk of psychological distress just because of the working environment. Because actually it depends on the meaning of the threat to that person, and none of us are really able to know that about each other. So it's really, really important for us to be sensitive and respectful and inclusive about the experience of distress for all of our colleagues throughout the trust, regardless of, where they're working or what else might be going on. And our role as wellbeing leads is really to enable others to share difficulty and distress that they might be feeling. And obviously that's not going to happen. It's not going to be possible if our teams are fostering those sorts of comparisons or divisions, that kind of them and us talk. Okay. So here are some ideas that we've heard from other teams about things that have helped them. So some ideas for kind of how you might respond. So how could you help people feel that their experience is seen and heard? So it's really nice to hear about the team huddles and how they're making a difference. So yeah, lots of teams have mentioned the huddles or kind of other opportunities for reflective discussion, sometimes one-to-one support with yourself as a wellbeing lead with a colleague, or kind of buddy systems. I think some teams have tried possibly virtual coffee breaks, especially when everyone's working virtually, or if you're on site, having some respite space where you can talk to other people about what you're going through. And some teams have kind of proactively contacted some of the senior management staff, executive team, to kind of come and see what's happening on their ward or in their area, to feel that, you know, their perspective's been taken on board, and I think that's often been really helpful. So how could you get help and support in meeting your team's needs? So if you feel that actually there aren't enough resources, there isn't enough staff, or there isn't enough kind of equipment, then it's really important to raise that either via your line manager. I think the freedom to speak up guardians can be quite useful with some of these things as well. Or maybe with the hospital charities, you know, they have, when I've contacted them, they've been very quick to sort of get back to me and really helpful. So that's also worth doing. So how could you make sure people's contributions are recognised and appreciated? You know, thanking them, obviously, you know, whether that's verbally, written way of thanking. Some teams have done kind of tokens of appreciation. I really liked this idea that they called "You've Been Mugged," where somebody in the team would sort of anonymously give somebody else a mug full of kind of goodies and treats and things. And then the person who got the mug would sort of do the same for somebody else in the team, so it would kind of go around the team. I thought that was a really neat idea. Other teams have contacted the trust people who are the communications people who are doing the kind of thank you to such and such a team webpage to kind of get that to happen. So I think, you know, some of these things, it's fine to proactively make that happen for your team, and you know, there's no need to kind of hold back from asking for those sorts of thanks and appreciation. And I think with thanks and appreciation in general, it can be really helpful to think about making it very specific. So not just a general kind of global thank you so much, but actually thanking the people for the particular things that they did and kind of outlining how it helped as well. And a bit about how can you challenge rather than collude with these divisions. So I think obviously we need to say that this needs to be quite gentle if you're challenging some of this sort of more us and them talk or kind of divisive talk comparisons that you're encountering, and it can be helpful to start by acknowledging that person or your team who are maybe engaging in that sort of divisiveness, possibly because that, you know, that's coming from a place of them not feeling that their needs are met or not feeling that their experience has been understood enough. They haven't had enough of what they need to be able to start to take somebody else's perspective. And I think the use of the phrase yes and can be quite helpful as well. So I'm just opening my screen again. Hopefully that's now back. So this phrase can really kind of help challenge a perspective without sort of dismissing it. So yes, you know, this has been really hard for you, and as a team we've all struggled with things. So yes, I hear what you're saying and I acknowledge your perspective, and there's also this other way of looking at things. I think encouraging opportunities to hear other people's perspectives, for example with team meetings. I think the Tuesday afternoon Wellbeing seminar that's available to all trust staff has been quite a nice opportunity for that, where there's been staff from right across the trust coming, all different teams, and it's really a nice opportunity to hear what it's been like for different staff groups. And I think also really maximising opportunities to highlight and celebrate whole team achievements, really sort of making the most of anything that can be celebrated. And I've heard from various teams about how helpful it's been to really sort of lead from the front. So actually, when they're asking their team to do something that's difficult or challenging, you know, doing that themselves and kind of encouraging people, you know, doing it with them, modelling that. Okay. So I wonder if we could go into another breakout room, unless you've had enough of breakout rooms. I know they're not the most straightforward, but I think it would be really helpful to be able to discuss what does your team need at the moment. You know, when you think about kind of Maslow's hierarchy, do you feel like there are unmet needs, and if so, how might you go about addressing those? And which of those ideas can you see working for your team? So are there any of the sort of ideas that have been mentioned that have sort of sparked something where you think, yeah, I can see that might be a good thing to do? Okay. All right, so let me stop the share again. So, Richard, is that okay to
Yeah,
redo the rooms?
I will redo the room.
I think Pallavi's putting the questions in the chat. Thank you for that.
Mhm. Oh.
Has that all worked?
Yeah, but I think some people had left the group as well, so I'm just checking that there's no one in a group on their own.
Okay, good idea. Yeah. So yeah, actually, it would be really worth getting some feedback on whether people are finding the breakout rooms just unhelpful in some way, and whether they'd rather just have a session where the whole group's there. Yeah.
Yeah, in group 6, Janice Eaton is on her own because the other 2, I think, may have left.
Oh, okay. Would you be able to try and transfer her, do you think?
Yeah, I can't it doesn't let me transfer, but I could add Terry Roberts, that's now just joined, perhaps.
Hi, Terry, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, people have gone into breakout rooms, which is why it might look a bit odd if you've just joined.
No problem.
I think I got kicked out and I've joined your boat room by mistake.
Yeah, I think we're starting to question whether breakout rooms are helping or not helping.
Do I stay here?
I think
I will try.
Be able to, yeah.
I will try and ask you to join room 1 again, Wendy.
Thank you. I was with Tamara.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fine.
Okay, that looks like that has worked. I forgot to say how long the rooms are going to be, but I think let's give it 10 minutes again. So.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe like 18 past.
Okay. Yeah. It seems fine now because everyone's got at least one other person to be talking to.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much for dealing with that. So can you see how many people are still in the meeting?
Yeah, I can. So we've in the breakout rooms, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 19.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I think once we announced the second breakout room, there were a few drop out.
Yeah, so that might be people voting with their feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll when they come back, I might just check in with people to see whether that's been helpful.
Yeah. I'll put in that link as well that Molly's asked me to put in for the feedback, and I guess.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, that would be really good. And I did ask, I'm not sure if Molly's at work this week, but I did ask her if there's been any feedback already, particularly about this kind of thing. You know, it'd be really useful to know if actually people are not liking the breakout rooms.
Yeah, yeah.
And are you happy to deal with the video? So actually the video will just be in the chat, won't it? So people can access it.
Yeah, yeah, it will be in the chat, and then I also save it onto in my folder in the O drive, and then I share that with Molly, and I think Molly uploads it onto Yama and one of the clinicians' YouTube channels as well. I've got a message that she wants me to put in the chat about that as well, and so I'll do that again.
Okay. I mean, it's not going to be the slickest recording.
No.
Saving forever.
I just looked it up as well just to check whether I could, you know, start and pause and stuff, but Teams doesn't have that function yet, apparently.
Yeah, I think you can. I've seen it somewhere else, probably Zoom, I think. yeah, not to worry. Okay, maybe let's give it another minute, Rashad, and then start getting people back.
Yeah. Shall I close them now?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
See. Oh, we are back.
So welcome back. Survived the trip through the internet. So it looks like most people are coming back. We're just talking. We would really appreciate some feedback in general, but also particularly about the breakout rooms. If you're finding that actually the breakout rooms are just a faff and a bit difficult to navigate and kind of interrupting it, the sense of being able to gain from this opportunity, then please let us know, because we can obviously do these things differently. You know, really what the intention is to make it possible for you to connect with each other. And if breakout rooms are making that harder rather than easier, then let's not do them, you know. So let us know how that's going maybe afterwards. So what I'd like to do is spend some time just having a whole group discussion about maybe some of the conversations that you've had together and anything on this theme of team unity. So it might well be that you want to share in the big group what you feel your team might need at the moment, you know, whether that's celebration of unity that's already really high, or whether it's, you know, making sure that everyone in the team feels that their perspectives heard and understood, or how you can create opportunities for people to see others' perspective, or anything else. And any other ideas that you might want to share with each other for kind of practical things that might help. So we've got a good 10 minutes for group discussion, and then there's a couple of summary slides I'd like to share at the end, and we'll finish really promptly at 12:30. So let's over to you. So let me just open up the chat, so feel free to use the chat if that's easier for you. Susan, I can see you've got your hand up, feel free to unmute.
Well, I thought the chat rooms were quite good. I mean, I'm sure that maybe not everybody got the same benefit that we did, but in our group, we were able to chat. I'm at the John Radcliffe. We were talking to someone from the NOC, and another lady was in the room with us. And actually, I felt, quite a good rapport. We were able to exchange experiences, and from that, you know, we were all giving each other a little bit of advice or ideas about how things could be improved. So I thought that was very good. You know, and I was saying how difficult it is as you know, a manager to be able to converse with your teams when you have to do it on Teams or on a huddle. You don't see them face to face, and how difficult that is. And a colleague in the room was saying, you know, it's okay to share the fact that you're finding it's difficult, and maybe you should let your team know that. So yeah, I thought I got quite a bit from my group actually. So I think that was good.
That's really great to hear, Susan. Thank you for that. Yeah, and really nice to hear you know, the flavour of the conversation that you had, and that was helpful. You know, it's really great to be able to hear suggestions from other people, isn't it? Yeah, thank you for that, Susan.
Thank you.
Claire.
We talked a lot about kind of the flexible working kind of elements that COVID brought inadvertently to the forefront, and kind of how keen we were that this was sort of carried forward when we do get out of the pandemic. And also kind of, I mentioned that I had a conversation with someone yesterday that was very much around making sure work fits in with your life rather than your life fits in with work, and kind of taking that attitude going forwards, and sort of in the conversations with your teams and things like that, to sort of, you know, people have got so much going on outside work, and see what we can do in that way, and that one size really doesn't fit all in that respect, and sort of really trying to individualise where you can, but obviously you have to maintain the service at the same time.
Yeah, but that, I guess, that's a really nice example of what we might call a sort of post-traumatic growth element of, something that perhaps has been instigated during this really difficult time that could be of long-term benefit. Yeah, that's really a nice idea. And yeah, you mentioned the importance of making sure that that's done in an equitable way. That's going to be a really important part of that. Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Claire. A couple of comments coming in on the chat on breakout rooms. So sounds like so far people are feeling like that opportunity to connect with each other and speak to each other is really helpful. It's just the kind of tech clunkiness that's a bit bothersome. And I think we've discovered today that if you join as a guest, it's more difficult to get into a breakout room, although I think it was achieved in the end. Yeah, thanks for those comments. Any other people want to comment about, how Unity is in your team at the moment, or things that you might need, or things that would help, or what you found is helpful? Yeah, someone's got their hand up. I'm not sure. Can't see your name. Oh, Sarah.
Hiya. One thing I just want to share. One thing that I've been doing in my area is we're trying to encourage staff just to go for a walk around lunchtime. Just go for a walk around the site, and they feel like a breeze of fresh air most of the time. So just going away off the being side of a building, it's actually very restorative. That's one of the things we've been doing. And meals, so people baking and bringing things to staff, it brings a sense of connection again and team. So that's been the thing that I can see that it makes people happy recently. Just want to share that.
Those are lovely ideas, and really, really kind of simple things as well, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Could I just quickly say something on that small point that Sarah's just brought up? Just in case you're in a clinical area, some people are not allowed to share food. So we, like in our department, because of where we work and what we're dealing with, we're not sharing. So even though the charitable funds were really lovely and gave us pizza, they gave us individual pizzas, which was really nice. But a lot of it is to do with the fact that we're very afraid of passing something from one plate to another.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really important point. But I think...
But we do bring in food, Sarah. We do bring in food, but we make sure that it's individually wrapped.
But I think there's still something important about the shared experience of, agreeing that you're all bringing food on that day that you'll each then eat, or that, you get the charities to provide something that everybody gets at the same time. That there's still that sense of being able to kind of share in something nice that's happening. Yeah, thank you for that. Any other comments?
We were kind of discussing about how huddles and team meetings, they can, when there's quite a lot of people on there, people feel that, when you kind of talk over each other, or, you can't really, you sometimes feel that you want to hold back, and because of that, people aren't speaking up. So one of the ideas that we had was we could do like a buddy system where a couple of people from your team meet up and chat, and then they can rotate the buddy system, so then it's kind of everyone's having the opportunity to be heard.
Yeah, that's a really nice idea. And I guess, with a lot of these things, actually having a mixture of different ways is going to try and cover all the bases, isn't it? Thank you for that. Any comments on the other sort of theme about the sense of connection and unity with the trust as a whole? How connected up do you what does the one team, one OUH mean to you? Do you feel like that's a reality for your team at the moment? Someone's got their hand up, I think. Oh yeah, Ruth.
I actually think from a therapy's perspective, it's helped bring us closer together. Certainly, I felt there was competition between the different therapy teams on the different sites, but with the need to redeploy staff to the respiratory areas, all of that competition has gone and people have become a lot more supportive of each other. And it feels much more like one team, one at OUH now than it ever did before.
That's really great, isn't it? Claire?
Yeah, I was literally thinking about this on the way to work this morning because that's what I do. But I was kind of thinking within pharmacy where I work, we have kind of very separate, we have the clinical team that's out on the wards or the dispensary or the manufacturing side, the stores side. And really one of my things I've just our wellbeing team is kind of to have that one pharmacy, one OUH kind of thing within our own department, because I think we are quite segregated. But one thing we talked about in the breakout room as well was about kind of how COVID's brought the maybe behind the scenes people very much to the forefront, that with a different focus on kind of different teams and things on the social media pages and stuff like that, like mortuary teams, labs teams have been so crucial throughout and who maybe you didn't really think about so much before. So that's been lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's been, well, I found it a really lovely opportunity just to understand in more detail, all the kind of amazing different teams that there are that actually, we couldn't manage without all of those different teams. So that I think that thanks page has been a good way to sort of see that highlighted. And I think, that's probably not covered everybody. And I think if your team hasn't had a go on that thanks page, then, get in touch with them, because I think it would be really great to make sure that that's gone around everybody, because, we can really learn a lot from, hearing about all these different teams. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah. Any other comments on that note? Particularly, I think a lot of the comments and experiences people have shared today have been really positive, which has been lovely. But I would really want to encourage people, if you've had a bit of a different experience of that, or you're concerned about something that feels more negative or more difficult, to raise that as well. Okay. So a couple of slides. I hope I can quickly share this just to finish off. So just in summary, one team, one OUH, as we've just been saying, isn't just a slogan. Actually, team unity is really central to our whole approach as a trust, both for our ability to respond to this crisis, but actually also for our recovery and reintegration, being able to sort of integrate this really challenging time with the pandemic in our teams individually, but also as a whole trust. So our session in 2 weeks' time is going to focus on the recovery side of things. So we'll kind of lead into that. And I think, this theme is going to be very relevant for thinking about supporting recovery. Unmet needs might be what's driving disunity, if that's there. So as wellbeing leads, part of the role is to help ensure that these needs are met as best you can. And also encouraging our teams to take a perspective of unity and leading from the front on that. Some further resources, if you haven't seen this already, the short practice, if you like that kind of thing, specifically aimed at doing this together as a team. A reminder about the OC Health Wellness pages. And I just wanted to highlight as well that, I don't know if Terry, if you're still on the call, actually, Terry was here earlier. Terry, I heard you say really clearly recently in the briefing that the resources are really for all staff. So if anybody's having difficulty accessing them, he wants to know about that and get in touch with him. Civility Saves Lives, I mentioned, I think that's worth a look. And I've also put this link on about a blog about team unity. And just because I found that interesting, it's actually coming from fields outside healthcare. And it's just some interesting stories about team unity. So you can follow that as well, and we'll add these slides into the chat as well, so you can come back to these if you want to. So thank you all very much for being here today, really appreciate it. We'll put the link for feedback in the chat, which you'll have access to afterwards. So thank you again. Pallavi, did you want to add something?
Thanks, Gwyn. Just a final word, just as always, as a reminder that if any of you would like some support in helping to translate the brilliant messages that Gwyn has given in terms of converting some of those ideas and applying those to your particular situations, then don't hesitate to contact me. I think most of you will have my contact details, but I'll just put those in the chat for a coaching session, coaching/mentoring session. Thanks, Gwyn.
Lovely. Thank you, Pallavi. So Rachel's doing one of these sessions tomorrow for any other wellbeing leads you know who couldn't join today. And then we'll be sending out links later in the week for 2 weeks' time. All right. Thank you all. Take care.